You know, in the Huntington's community, there are a few topics that come up again and again, and they're always filled with so much hope and so many questions. Medical cannabis is definitely at the top of that list. So today, we're going to cut through all the noise and look directly at the science.
So let's just get right to it. The central question is this: can these products actually help? We're going to follow the evidence together and see what we can find out.
And it's really easy to see why there's so much buzz, right? For a community that's constantly searching for better ways to manage incredibly difficult symptoms, the promise of any new option feels incredibly powerful.
Okay, so to start, we've got to get our terms straight. The marijuana plant itself contains about 100 different active compounds. These are what we call cannabinoids, and they are the key players in this whole discussion.
Now, of those 100 or so compounds, there are two that get pretty much all the attention. On one side, you have THC. That's the main psychoactive one. It's what causes the high feeling. But on the other side, you have CBD. And this is crucial. It's non-psychoactive. It doesn't have that mind-altering effect, which is exactly why researchers are so interested in its potential as a medicine.
It's also absolutely critical to understand where these products are coming from. A very small number are actual FDA-approved medicines. You need a prescription for them, and they're only for very specific conditions. But everything else, the oils, the edibles, the vapes you see online or in dispensaries, none of that is regulated by the FDA. And that's a big deal. It means there's no official oversight on their claims, the dosage, or how they might interact with other drugs you're taking.
So let's get to the core of it all. We're going to follow the scientific evidence, step by step, starting in the lab and then moving into human clinical trials.
The initial spark of hope really came from the lab. Early studies looking at cells and animal models of Huntington's, well, they showed some truly encouraging signs.
And check this out. This is what really got people excited. In those lab studies, when they took cells that had the mutated Huntington's protein and exposed them to CBD, it protected between 50 and 85% of them from dying. That's a huge neuroprotective effect in a petri dish. And it's exactly what made researchers say, okay, we have to take this to the next step.
But, and this is a big but, this is where our story takes a turn. Moving a promising result from a lab dish into an actual human being is one of the hardest things to do in medicine. And for cannabis and HD, the picture gets a whole lot murkier.
And to understand why, let's just start with the scale. The first major clinical trial of pure CBD for Huntington's involved just 15 people. 15. Now, it was a crucial first step for sure, but with a group that small, it's just very, very difficult to draw any firm conclusions.
And this slide really lays out the challenge. When you look at the human trials side by side, the results are, well, they're all over the place. That first 15-person study with CBD, it found no improvement in motor symptoms. A tiny 3-person study saw a slight improvement in chorea. A THC/CBD spray called Sativex showed no benefits at all. And Nebilone, a synthetic THC, didn't really help chorea and came with side effects. There's just no clear, consistent pattern of success here.
However, a major review in 2022 added a really fascinating twist. After looking at all the available data, researchers suggested that maybe different compounds do different things. It seems like CBD-based products might be associated with helping motor symptoms, like chorea, while synthetic THC-like products might be better for behavioral symptoms. This hints that the key might not be if cannabis works, but which specific part of it works for which specific symptom. That's a huge shift in thinking.
So, with such a mixed bag on effectiveness, we absolutely have to look closely at safety. It's so important to remember that these are not harmless substances. They come with real side effects.
Let's start with CBD. It's often marketed as being completely safe, but research shows it can cause things like fatigue, diarrhea, and changes in appetite. It can even cause abnormalities in your liver enzymes, which is something a doctor needs to monitor carefully.
As for THC, the side effects can be even more pronounced. Beyond just dizziness or intoxication, it can cause changes in behavior and mood. And this is really important. It can impact cognition and memory. In a disease like Huntington's, where cognition is already affected, that's a very, very serious consideration.
But as we sift through all these known side effects, experts point to something that might be even more concerning. The single biggest risk isn't actually what we know, it's what we don't.
And that brings us to this monster of a question. We have almost no data on how over-the-counter THC or CBD products interact with the prescription medications that so many people with Huntington's rely on every single day. We just don't know if they make those drugs less effective or maybe even more toxic. This is a massive safety concern.
So after looking at the basic science, the mixed-up trial results, and the really big safety concerns, what's the bottom line? What's the verdict for patients and families right now?
Well, the expert consensus is pretty direct. Based on the current research, they do not support the widespread use of cannabis products for every person with Huntington's. The evidence simply isn't there to make that recommendation yet.
But this isn't a dead end. It's really a call for caution and, more than anything else, communication. So what are your next steps? It's personal. First, clarify your goal. What specific symptom are you actually trying to manage? Chorea? Anxiety? Pain? And then, number 2, and this is the most important part, have an open conversation with your healthcare provider. Talk about your goals, the potential benefits, and the very real risks we just discussed.
And that kind of leaves us with this final thought. The story of cannabis and Huntington's is not over. The ultimate question is still out there. As the research continues, could scientists figure out how to create a precisely formulated medicine from cannabinoids that could become a key tool in the HD toolkit? The research is ongoing, but for right now, the answer is still hope, and not yet reality.